German Shepherd with her 2 puppies, collapsed at the doorstep. What baby did next left everyone in tears. The story you're about to listen will break your heart and then mend it in ways you never expected. If this doesn't leave you in tears, nothing will. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and let us know where you're watching from. Thunder cracked across the sky, splitting the darkness with a blinding flash that illuminated the quiet suburban neighborhood for just a second, before plunging it back into shadow. Rain pounded against windows and rooftops, with a fury that made the small, cozy house on Maple Street seem like it was under siege. Inside, the warm yellow glow of lamps created a stark contrast to the raging storm outside. Lena Carter stood in the kitchen, her hands working methodically as she chopped vegetables for dinner. The rhythmic sound of the knife hitting the cutting board blended with the steady drumming of rain against the windows. Her husband, Daniel, moved around her, setting the table, their movements synchronized after years of sharing the same space. "Do you think this storm will let up anytime soon?" Lena asked, brushing a strand of chestnut hair from her face with the back of her wrist. Daniel glanced at the window, where raindrops raced down the glass in chaotic patterns. "The forecast said it would last through the night. I'm just glad we're all inside and—" He paused, looking around the kitchen. "Where's Noah?" A small giggle from the living room answered his question. 5-year-old Noah Carter sat cross-legged on the floor near the bay window, his favorite toy dinosaur clutched in one small hand, while the other pressed against the cold glass. His big blue eyes watched the storm with fascination rather than fear, his breath creating small circles of fog on the window that disappeared almost as quickly as they formed. "Look, Rex," Noah whispered to his toy. "The sky is angry today." The dinosaur, a well-loved T-Rex with one slightly chewed arm, remained silent in the boy's grip as Noah continued his one-sided conversation, explaining the science of thunderstorms the way his kindergarten teacher had taught him last week. "The clouds bump into each other," he explained seriously to Rex, "and that makes electricity. That's why we see lightning." Another crack of thunder, louder than before, shook the house slightly. Noah didn't flinch. Unlike most children his age, storms fascinated rather than frightened him. He pressed his nose against the window, trying to see through the sheets of rain to the street beyond. That's when he heard it, a sound so faint that at first he thought it might be part of the storm, a scratching noise, followed by something that sounded almost like a whimper. Noah tilted his head, listening. There it was again. He dropped Rex onto the carpet and scrambled to his feet, his small socks sliding slightly on the hardwood floor as he ran to the front door. The sound was clearer now, a definite scratching against the wood, punctuated by a weak, pitiful whine. "Mommy!" Noah called, his voice rising with urgency. "Mommy! Daddy! Someone's there!" Noah pressed his tiny hands against the door, feeling the vibration of another scratch from the other side. His eyes widened as he turned toward the kitchen, where his parents had paused in their dinner preparations. "Mommy," he whispered, his innocent eyes suddenly filled with worry. "I think someone needs help." Lena exchanged a quick glance with Daniel, who wiped his hands on a kitchen towel and moved toward the door. The scratching came again, more insistent this time. "Noah, step back, buddy," Daniel said gently, placing a protective hand on his son's shoulder. "Let me check." Noah reluctantly moved back a few steps, but stayed close enough to see as his father approached the door cautiously. Daniel leaned forward to peer through the peephole, then frowned. The porch light was on, but he couldn't make out anything clearly through the curtain of rain. "Who is it?" Lena asked, coming to stand behind Noah, her hands resting protectively on his small shoulders. Daniel shook his head. "I can't see clearly. Could be the wind blowing something against the door." Another whimper came, this one weaker than before, followed by a sound that could only be described as a moan. Noah tugged at his father's pants leg. "Daddy, please open it," he pleaded. "They sound hurt." Daniel hesitated for just a moment longer before nodding. "Stand back," he told Noah and Lena, reaching for the deadbolt. The lock clicked open, and Daniel slowly pulled the door inward, bracing himself for whatever might be on the other side. Nothing could have prepared him for what he saw. Daniel's sharp intake of breath was audible even over the sound of the storm. Lena moved forward instinctively, one hand still on Noah's shoulder, the other covering her mouth as she gasped. Her once beautiful coat was matted with mud and what looked disturbingly like dried blood. Her sides heaved with labored breaths, and her eyes, amber pools filled with pain and exhaustion, looked up at them with a desperation that was almost human. But it was what lay beside her that made Noah push past his father's protective arm with a cry of distress. Nestled against the mother dog's belly, shivering violently, were two tiny puppies. Their eyes weren't even fully open yet, their small bodies wet and cold in the merciless rain that still pounded down on the unprotected porch. "Oh my God," Lena whispered, her voice cracking. "Daniel, they're freezing out there." Noah was already on his knees beside the mother dog, his small face twisted with concern. "Mommy, she's hurt," he cried, tears welling up in his eyes. "The babies are so cold. We have to help them." Lena instinctively reached out to pull Noah back. "Noah, be careful. We don't know this dog. She might be dangerous." But as she spoke, the German Shepherd lifted her head slightly, her movements painfully weak. Instead of growling or showing any sign of aggression, she nudged Noah's tiny hand with her wet nose, then looked up at Lena with those amber eyes that seemed to hold a plea more eloquent than words. Noah looked up at his mother, his own eyes wide and brimming with tears. "See, Mommy? She's asking for help. She knows we can help her babies." Daniel knelt down beside his son, examining the dog more closely without touching her. "She's in bad shape, Lena," he said quietly. "Looks like she's been out in this storm for hours, maybe longer. And there's something else." He pointed to a patch of fur that was darker than the rest, matted with what was unmistakably blood. "She's injured, maybe hit by a car." Lena bit her lip, torn between concern for the animals and worry for her son. "Noah, step back, honey. We don't know if—" "But they'll die if we don't help them," Noah interrupted, his voice rising with a passion that surprised his parents. His small body trembled almost as much as the puppies as he looked from his mother to his father and back again. "Please, Mommy. Please, Daddy. We can't leave them out here." The mother dog made another soft, whimpering sound, her eyes never leaving Noah's face. Then, with what seemed like her last ounce of strength, she pushed one of the puppies closer to the boy with her nose before collapsing back onto the wet porch, her eyes sliding closed. "Mom!" Noah cried out in alarm, his small hand hovering over the dog's head, afraid to touch her but desperate to help. Daniel and Lena exchanged a quick look, one of those silent conversations that parents have when faced with a situation neither had prepared for. In that moment, they both knew they couldn't turn these animals away. "I'll get some towels," Lena said quickly, turning back toward the house. "Noah, stay right there. Don't touch them yet," Daniel instructed, his voice gentle but firm. "I'm going to call Dr. Ramirez." Dr. Ramirez was their neighbor 2 houses down, a retired veterinarian who still occasionally helped out at the local animal clinic. If anyone would know what to do, it would be her. As his parents sprang into action, Noah remained on his knees beside the mother dog and her puppies. The rain continued to fall, soaking through his pajama pants, but he didn't seem to notice or care. His eyes were fixed on the 3 animals before him, his small face etched with a concern far deeper than most children his age would show. "It's okay," he whispered, leaning close to the mother dog's ear. "My mommy and daddy will help you. You're safe now. I promise." The German Shepherd's ear twitched slightly at his words, though her eyes remained closed. One of the puppies let out a tiny mewling cry that pierced Noah's heart like a knife. Lena returned moments later with an armful of towels. She knelt beside Noah, her initial fear giving way to compassion as she saw the state of the animals up close. "Here, honey," she said, handing Noah a small, soft towel. "Very gently, okay? Like this." She demonstrated how to pat the mother dog's fur, absorbing the rain without pressing too hard on any potential injuries. Noah followed her example with a tender focus that seemed beyond his years. His small hands moved carefully over the mother dog's head, his touch as light as a butterfly's wings. "She's so cold, Mommy," he whispered. Daniel returned to the porch, phone in hand. "Dr. Ramirez is on her way. She said not to move the mother if possible, but to get the puppies warm right away." Lena was already wrapping one of the puppies in a towel, her movements efficient but gentle. She passed the bundle to Daniel, who cradled it against his chest. The tiny creature squirmed weakly, its eyes still mostly shut, its small paws pushing against the towel. The second puppy was even smaller, its movements more feeble. As Lena reached for it, Noah suddenly spoke up. "Can I hold it, Mommy?" "Please, I'll be super careful." Lena hesitated for just a moment before nodding. "Sit down properly first," she instructed, helping Noah to position himself with his back against the wall of the house, out of the direct path of the rain. Then, with infinite care, she placed the towel-wrapped puppy in his arms, adjusting his hold to support the tiny head. The moment the puppy was settled in Noah's arms, something remarkable happened. The tiny creature, which had been whimpering softly, gradually quieted. Its miniature nose twitched, sniffing at Noah's pajama shirt, and then it seemed to relax, nestling against the warmth of the boy's chest. Noah looked up at his mother, his eyes wide with wonder. "It likes me," he whispered, a small smile breaking through his tears. The mother dog, hearing her puppy's shifting movements, forced her eyes open again. She watched Noah holding her baby, and something in her gaze softened. Despite her obvious pain and exhaustion, her tail moved in the faintest hint of a wag. Just a small twitch, really, but unmistakable in its meaning. Lena felt her own eyes filling with tears at the sight. "Yes, honey," she said softly. "I think she knows you're helping." The front door opened wider as Daniel returned from placing the first puppy inside. "Doctor, Ramirez says we should bring the mother in too. I'll carry her." "Will it hurt her?" Noah asked anxiously, his arms still carefully cradling the small puppy. Daniel knelt beside the German Shepherd, assessing the best way to lift her without causing additional pain. "I'll be as gentle as I can, buddy. She needs to be inside where it's warm." With Lena's help, Daniel managed to slide his arms beneath the dog's body. She was surprisingly heavy despite her emaciated condition, and she let out a small whimper of pain as he lifted her. Noah watched anxiously, his lips pressed together in worry. "It's okay, girl," Daniel murmured to the dog. "We're going to help you." Slowly, carefully, the Carter family made their way inside. Daniel placed the mother dog on a thick blanket Lena had spread in the living room corner. Noah, still holding the second puppy, sat cross-legged beside her, his face solemn with concentration, as he continued to gently pat the tiny creature dry. The first puppy had been placed in a small box lined with soft towels, positioned close enough to the mother that she could see it, but not so close that she might accidentally hurt it in her weakened state. "Can I put this one with its brother?" Noah asked, looking up at his father. Daniel nodded. "That's a good idea. They'll keep each other warm." With remarkable care for a 5-year-old, Noah transferred the puppy from his arms to the box, making sure it was nestled securely against its sibling. The two tiny creatures immediately curled around each other, their small bodies seeking comfort in familiar scent and warmth. The mother dog watched the process intently, her amber eyes never leaving her puppies. When she was satisfied they were safe, she turned her gaze to Noah, who had returned to sit beside her. For a long moment, dog and boy simply looked at each other. Then, with what seemed like enormous effort, the German Shepherd lifted her head just enough to lick Noah's small hand once before laying her head back down on the blanket. Noah beamed as if he'd been given the greatest gift in the world. "See, Mommy?" he said, turning to Lena with shining eyes. "She says thank you." Before Lena could respond, a knock came at the door. 3 sharp raps that announced Dr. Ramirez's arrival. Daniel hurried to let her in. Dr. Elena Ramirez was a small woman with silver-streaked black hair pulled back in a practical bun. Despite being in her 60s, she moved with the brisk efficiency of someone half her age. She carried a large medical bag and wore a rain jacket that dripped onto the welcome mat as she stepped inside. "So, where's the patient?" she asked without preamble, her eyes scanning the room until they landed on the German Shepherd and the box of puppies. Her expression softened immediately. "Ah, I see." Noah scooted slightly to the side as Dr. Ramirez approached, but he didn't leave the dog's side. "Can you help her?" he asked, his voice small and worried. "She's really hurt." Dr. Ramirez knelt beside the German Shepherd, her experienced hands already moving over the dog's body in a gentle but thorough examination. "What's your name, young man?" she asked Noah without looking up. "Noah," he replied. "And I don't know her name yet." Dr. Ramirez smiled slightly at that "yet," as if Noah had already decided the dog would be staying. "Well, Noah, I'm going to do my best to help her. Can you be my assistant?" Noah's eyes widened, and he nodded solemnly. "Yes, ma'am." "Good. First thing I need you to do is talk to her, very softly. Dogs can tell when someone cares about them, and it helps them feel safe. Noah didn't need to be told twice. He leaned close to the German Shepherd's ear and began whispering words of comfort and encouragement while Dr. Ramirez continued her examination. Lena and Daniel stood back, watching the scene with a mixture of concern and amazement. Their son, usually so energetic and bouncy, was showing a patient gentleness they had rarely seen in him before. "Pulse is weak but steady," Dr. Ramirez murmured, more to herself than to the anxious parents. Respiration labored but not critical. Her fingers probed a particularly matted area of fur, causing the dog to whimper. "This is a puncture wound, not a laceration. Consistent with a bite, not a car accident." She looked up at Daniel and Lena, her expression serious. "This dog has been attacked, probably by another dog. The wound is at least a day old, possibly 2. She's also severely dehydrated and malnourished." She glanced at the puppies. "Those little ones can't be more than 2 weeks old. The fact that she's kept them alive in her condition is nothing short of miraculous." Noah, who had been listening intently while continuing to stroke the mother dog's ears, looked up at the veterinarian. "She's a good mommy," he said simply. Dr. Ramirez's expression softened as she looked at the boy. "Yes, she is, Noah. A very good mommy indeed." She turned back to Daniel and Lena. "I need to clean and treat that wound, give her some fluids, and check the puppies. Do I have your permission to treat them?" Daniel and Lena exchanged another look. They hadn't discussed what would happen after the immediate crisis. Taking in a dog, especially one with puppies, was a huge responsibility, one they hadn't prepared for. As if sensing their hesitation, Noah spoke up, his voice surprisingly steady for a child of his age. "Please, Mommy and Daddy, we have to help them. They don't have anyone else." There was something in Noah's eyes, a depth of compassion and determination that made the decision for them. "Of course, Dr. Ramirez," Lena said. "Please do whatever you need to." Daniel nodded his agreement. "We can figure out the long-term plan later. Right now, they need help." Relief flooded Noah's face, and he turned back to the German Shepherd. "Did you hear that?" he whispered to her. "Dr. Ramirez is going to make you all better." Dr. Ramirez opened her medical bag and began removing supplies. Antiseptic solution, gauze, a bag of intravenous fluids, syringes, and various other items that transformed the Carters' living room into a makeshift veterinary clinic. "Noah, I need you to keep doing exactly what you're doing," she instructed. "Keep talking to her, keep her calm. This might hurt a little, but it's going to help her feel much better." Noah nodded seriously, accepting his vital role with the gravity of a much older child. He positioned himself where the mother dog could see him clearly and continued his steady stream of gentle reassurances. As Dr. Ramirez began cleaning the wound, the German Shepherd tensed, a low whine escaping her throat. Noah immediately leaned closer, his small face just inches from hers. "It's okay," he said softly. "Dr. Ramirez is helping you. You're so brave. You're the bravest dog in the whole world." Whether it was the boy's words or his presence, the dog visibly relaxed, her eyes fixed on Noah's face, as if he were an anchor in a storm of pain. Lena watched, amazed at the connection between her son and this strange dog. There was something almost uncanny about it, as if they understood each other on a level that went beyond words. Dr. Ramirez worked efficiently, cleaning the wound, administering antibiotics, and setting up a drip to combat the dehydration. All the while, Noah remained at the dog's side, his voice never faltering, his small hand a constant comforting presence on her head. When she had finished with the mother, Dr. Ramirez turned her attention to the puppies. She examined each one carefully, checking their eyes, ears, and reflexes, before nodding with satisfaction. "They're underweight but otherwise healthy," she announced. "Their eyes are just beginning to open, which puts them at about 2 weeks old. They'll need to be bottle-fed for a while. The mother isn't producing enough milk in her condition." She showed Lena and Daniel how to prepare the special formula and how to feed the puppies using small bottles designed for newborn animals. Noah watched every move with intense concentration, clearly memorizing the process. "Can I feed them too?" he asked eagerly. Dr. Ramirez smiled. "With your parents' help, yes. You'd make an excellent veterinary assistant, Noah." The boy beamed at the compliment, his earlier tears forgotten in the excitement of his new responsibilities. As Dr. Ramirez packed up her supplies, she pulled Daniel and Lena aside, her expression becoming serious once more. "She's stable for now, but not out of the woods. The next 24 hours will be critical."
I've given her antibiotics and painkillers, but she'll need close monitoring. The wound was deep, and there's a risk of infection. Should we take her to an animal hospital? Lena asked quietly, glancing back at Noah, who was still sitting vigilantly beside the dog. Dr. Ramirez considered this. Normally, I would say yes, but moving her right now might do more harm than good, and those puppies need feeding every 2 hours. She hesitated, then added, "There's also the matter of cost. Emergency veterinary care isn't cheap, especially for 3 animals." Daniel ran a hand through his hair, concern evident on his face. "We'll figure something out. We can't just—" "Look," Dr. Ramirez interrupted gently. "I'm retired, but I still have all my equipment at home. I can stop by every few hours to check on her. If her condition worsens, then yes, she'll need to go to the hospital. But for now, I think she's where she needs to be." She glanced meaningfully at Noah, who was now carefully stroking one of the puppies with a single finger, his touch feather light. Lena followed her gaze, and something in her heart shifted. "Thank you, Dr. Ramirez. We really appreciate your help." The veterinarian smiled. "It's what I do, and it's not every day I get to work with such an excellent assistant." She walked back to Noah and knelt beside him. "I'm counting on you to call me if anything changes, okay? Your job is very important." Noah nodded, his expression as serious as a heart surgeon's. "I won't let you down." After Dr. Ramirez left, with promises to return in a few hours, the Carter family settled into a new routine centered around their unexpected guests. Daniel brought in the dog crate from the garage, left over from their previous dog who had passed away last year, and lined it with soft blankets for the puppies. He positioned it right next to the mother dog's makeshift bed so she could see and smell her babies. Lena prepared the special formula according to Dr. Ramirez's instructions, warming it to the perfect temperature. Under her watchful eye, Noah carefully held the tiny bottle to one puppy's mouth while Lena fed the other. "They're so little," Noah marveled, watching in fascination as the puppy in his lap suckled eagerly at the bottle. "What should we call them?" Lena and Daniel exchanged another look. Naming the dogs would make this temporary situation feel much more permanent, but the hopeful expression on Noah's face was hard to resist. "Well," Daniel said carefully, "maybe we should wait until the mother is feeling better. She might already have names for them." Noah considered this seriously, then nodded. "You're right, Daddy. We should ask her first." He turned to the German Shepherd, who was watching the feeding process with tired but alert eyes. "Do you have a name?" he asked her solemnly. The dog blinked slowly, then licked her lips, her eyes never leaving her puppies. "I think she does have a name," Noah declared. "We just don't know it yet. But that's okay. We can find out." Lena smiled at her son's logic. "That's right, honey. For now, let's just focus on helping them get better." As the evening wore on, the storm outside gradually began to subside. The thunder became more distant, the rain less torrential. Inside, the Carter home had transformed into a sanctuary for 3 lost souls who had found their way to the right doorstep on the darkest of nights. Noah, despite his parents' gentle suggestions that he go to bed, refused to leave his post beside the mother dog. His eyelids grew heavy as the hour grew late, but his determination never wavered. "I promised I'd stay with her," he insisted when Lena tried again to coax him to his bedroom. "She's scared, Mommy. I can tell." Rather than arguing, Lena brought Noah's pillow and favorite blanket to the living room. She helped him make a small nest for himself on the couch, positioned so he could still see the dogs from where he lay. "You can sleep here tonight," she told him, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. "But you have to actually sleep, okay? The puppies and their mommy need to rest too." Noah nodded, his eyes already starting to close, despite his best efforts to keep them open. "Good night, Mommy," he murmured, his voice thick with oncoming sleep. "Good night, doggies." Lena bent to kiss his forehead. "Good night, my sweet boy." As she straightened up, her eyes met those of the German shepherd. The dog was looking at her with an expression that seemed impossibly human, a mixture of gratitude, exhaustion, and lingering fear. But there was something else there too, something that sent a small shiver down Lena's spine. Recognition. Not the simple recognition of a dog for a human who had shown kindness, but something deeper, something that made Lena feel, just for a moment, that this was not the first time those amber eyes had looked into hers.
Then the dog's eyes slowly closed, her body finally surrendering to the medications and exhaustion. And the moment passed. Lena shook her head slightly, dismissing the strange feeling as a product of the emotional evening and her own tiredness. Daniel came in from checking the locks and turning out lights. He paused, taking in the scene of his son sleeping peacefully on the couch, and the 3 dogs settled nearby. "Well," he said quietly to Lena, "this isn't how I expected our evening to go." Lena leaned against him, drawing comfort from his solid presence. "Life has a way of surprising us, doesn't it?" He put his arm around her shoulders and kissed the top of her head. "That it does. Come on, let's try to get some sleep while we can. I have a feeling tomorrow is going to be a busy day." As they turned to go upstairs, neither noticed the way the German shepherd's eyes opened slightly, watching them until they disappeared from view. Nor did they see how she then turned her gaze to Noah, sleeping peacefully on the couch, one small hand hanging down, as if reaching toward her, even in sleep. No one saw the single tear that seemed to form in the corner of the dog's amber eye before she finally surrendered to a deep, healing sleep, the first truly safe rest she had known in a very long time. The soft morning light filtered through the curtains, casting gentle shadows across the living room. Noah was the first to stir, his eyes fluttering open as the memory of last night's events rushed back to him. He bolted upright on the couch, his gaze immediately seeking out the German shepherd and her puppies. The mother dog was awake, her amber eyes watching him quietly. When she saw him looking at her, her tail gave a weak thump against the blanket. Noah slid off the couch and crawled over to her, his movements slow and careful. "Good morning," he whispered, his small hand hovering above her head. "Can I pet you?" As if in answer, the dog lifted her head slightly, closing the gap between them. Noah's face broke into a wide smile as he gently stroked her ears. "Noah?" Lena's voice came from the stairway. "You're up early." Noah turned to see his mother descending the stairs, still in her bathrobe, her hair tousled from sleep. "She's awake too, Mommy," he reported excitedly. "And she looks better." Lena knelt beside her son, examining the German shepherd with cautious optimism. The dog did indeed look more alert this morning, her eyes clearer and more focused. The makeshift IV Dr. Ramirez had set up was nearly empty, having done its job of rehydrating the exhausted animal overnight. "She does look better," Lena agreed, reaching out to carefully check the bandage on the dog's side. "And the puppies?" Noah scrambled over to the crate where the 2 tiny puppies were nestled together, their small bodies rising and falling with each breath. "They're still sleeping, but they look okay too." Daniel joined them, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, his hair sticking up at odd angles. "How are our guests this morning?" he asked, stifling a yawn. Before anyone could answer, the smaller of the 2 puppies began to squirm and emit a high-pitched whining sound. The mother dog immediately tensed, trying to push herself up to reach her baby. No, it's okay," Noah said quickly, placing a gentle hand on her shoulder. "I'll bring them to you." With a care that belied his young age, Noah carefully lifted the whimpering puppy from the crate. "He's just hungry, that's all," he explained to the mother dog, as if she could understand every word. Perhaps she could, because she settled back down, watching intently as Noah placed the puppy beside her. The tiny creature immediately nuzzled against its mother, seeking milk. The German shepherd licked her puppy gently, but the little one continued to whimper, clearly unsatisfied. "Doctor," Ramirez said she might not have enough milk, Lena remembered, getting to her feet. "I'll warm up some of that formula." While Lena headed to the kitchen, Noah retrieved the second puppy, which had also begun to stir, and placed it beside its sibling. The mother dog continued to lick them both, but her own condition was still too weak to provide the nourishment they needed. Daniel knelt beside Noah. You really care about them, don't you, buddy? Noah nodded solemnly. They don't have anyone else, Daddy. They need us. Something in his son's words touched Daniel deeply. He'd always known Noah had a kind heart, but there was something about the boy's instant connection with these animals that seemed almost preordained. Lena returned with 2 small bottles of warm formula. "Feeding time," she announced, handing one to Daniel. "Noah, do you want to try again?" Noah nodded eagerly, settling himself cross-legged next to the mother dog. Lena showed him once more how to hold the tiny puppy and position the bottle. The puppy latched onto the nipple with surprising strength, sucking hungrily. Noah beamed with pride. "Look, I'm doing it. He really likes it." While Noah and Daniel fed the puppies, Lena examined the mother dog more closely. The animal's gaze never left her babies, but she allowed Lena to check her wound and adjust her blankets without protest. "You were very brave to bring your babies here," Lena said softly to the dog, feeling slightly foolish for talking to an animal, but somehow compelled to do so anyway. "You chose the right house, especially with Noah here." The German Shepherd turned her gaze to Lena, and again Lena had that strange feeling of recognition, as if the dog understood far more than an animal should. Then the moment passed as the doorbell rang, startling them all. "That'll be Dr. Ramirez," Daniel said, carefully passing his puppy to Lena before going to answer the door. Sure enough, the veterinarian had returned as promised, carrying her medical bag and a box of additional supplies. She surveyed the scene with approval. "Well, you've been busy. How's everyone doing this morning?" "The mommy dog is more awake," Noah reported seriously. "And the puppies were really hungry." Dr. Ramirez smiled at him. "That's excellent news. May I check them over?" Noah reluctantly relinquished his puppy to Lena's care and moved back to give Dr. Ramirez room to work. She examined the mother dog first, checking her temperature, her wound, and her overall responsiveness. "The antibiotics are working," she announced with satisfaction. "Her fever is down, and the wound is looking cleaner. She's not out of danger yet, but she's definitely improved." She turned her attention to the puppies next, weighing each one on a small scale she'd brought with her. "Still underweight, but that's to be expected. They've been through a lot." She looked up at Lena and Daniel. "You've done a remarkable job. Not many people would take on this kind of responsibility for strays." Noah frowned at the word strays. "They're not strays anymore," he said firmly. "There are dogs now." A silence fell over the room as the adults exchanged glances. Dr. Ramirez looked from Lena to Daniel, clearly not wanting to step on any parental toes. Daniel cleared his throat. "Noah, buddy, we haven't decided that yet. These dogs might belong to someone who's looking for them." Noah's face fell. But they came to our door. They chose us." Lena knelt beside her son. "Honey, what Daddy means is that we need to make sure no one else is missing them before we can think about keeping them. It's the right thing to do." Noah looked unconvinced, his lower lip jutting out in the beginning of a pout. Dr. Ramirez, sensing the tension, reached into her bag and pulled out a small device. "Before anyone makes any decisions, let's check if this mother has a microchip. That would tell us who she belongs to." She ran the scanner over the German Shepherd's neck and shoulders. After a moment, the device beeped and Dr. Ramirez nodded. "She does have a chip." Noah's eyes filled with tears. "So, we have to give her back?" "Not necessarily, Doctor," Ramirez said carefully. "First, we need to find out who registered the chip and what the circumstances are. Given her condition, there might be more to the story." She pulled out her phone and made a call to the chip registry, reading off the number displayed on her scanner. Her expression grew increasingly puzzled as she listened to the response. "Are you certain?" she asked after a moment. "Yes, I understand. Thank you." She hung up and looked at the Carters with a perplexed expression. "What is it?" Daniel asked. "The chip is registered to a man named Edward Grayson," Dr. Ramirez explained. "But according to their records, he reported the dog, Maya is her name, as deceased over a year ago." "Deceased?" Lena repeated, looking at the very much alive dog on their living room floor. "There must be some mistake." Dr. Ramirez shook her head. "That's what I thought, but they were quite clear. And there's something else strange. Mr. Grayson himself is listed as unreachable. His contact information is flagged with a note that says, 'No current address or phone.' Noah, who had been listening intently, placed a protective hand on Maya's head. Maybe the bad man was trying to hurt her, and she ran away. The adults looked at him in surprise. "What makes you say that, honey?" Lena asked. Noah shrugged, his eyes not meeting his mother's. "Just a feeling." Before anyone could question him further, Maya suddenly lifted her head, her ears perked forward. A low growl rumbled in her throat, not threatening but alert, protective. "What is it, girl?" Daniel asked, automatically moving closer to Noah and the puppies. Maya's growl subsided, but she remained tense, her gaze fixed on the front window. Noah followed her line of sight, but there was nothing visible except the quiet street beyond. "She hears something," Noah whispered, his small body instinctively curling protectively around the puppies. Dr. Ramirez looked concerned. "I should report this to animal control. If Maya was reported dead but is actually alive, and in this condition, something's not right." Daniel nodded. "I agree. And maybe the police should know too, if someone hurt her deliberately." Noah's eyes widened at the mention of police. "No," he said suddenly, with such vehemence that all three adults stared at him in shock. "No police. They can't help." "Noah," Lena began, shocked by her son's outburst. "The police help people and animals who are hurt." "Not this time," Noah interrupted, his voice trembling. "They won't believe." He looked down at Maya, who had settled slightly but was still watching the window with wary eyes. "She's scared of them." There was something so certain, so adult in Noah's tone, that it sent a chill down Lena's spine. This wasn't like her son at all. Noah was usually respectful of authority figures, especially police officers, whom he'd always regarded with almost hero worship. "How about this?" Dr. Ramirez suggested gently. "I'll make some inquiries through the veterinary community first. Sometimes we hear things that don't make it to official channels. I know a colleague who worked with police dogs. Maybe he knows this Mr. Grayson or has heard something about Maya." This compromise seemed to satisfy Noah, who relaxed slightly, though he kept his hand on Maya's head. The German Shepherd licked his fingers once, then returned her attention to her puppies, who had finished their bottles and were now sleeping contentedly against her side. As Dr. Ramirez packed up her supplies and prepared to leave, she pulled Daniel and Lena aside once more. "I don't want to alarm you," she said in a low voice, "but there's something unusual about this situation. Maya is a purebred German Shepherd with specialized training. I can tell from her responses and behavior. These dogs are valuable, and they don't just end up abandoned unless something has gone very wrong." Lena glanced back at Noah, who was now talking softly to Maya, telling her about his favorite cartoons as if they were having a normal conversation. "What do you think happened to her?" Dr. Ramirez shook her head. "I don't know, but those injuries weren't an accident. Someone wanted to hurt her, or worse. And the fact that her owner reported her dead, but she's here, alive, with puppies that can't be more than a few weeks old." She trailed off, her expression troubled. "Should we be worried?" Daniel asked, lowering his voice even further. "For our safety, I mean?" The veterinarian considered this. "I don't think Maya herself poses any threat to your family. If anything, she seems remarkably bonded to Noah already. But as for whoever hurt her," she sighed, "just be cautious. Keep your doors locked, and call me immediately if anything seems off." After Dr. Ramirez left, promising to return that evening with more supplies and hopefully more information, the Carters tried to return to some semblance of their normal Sunday routine. Lena made pancakes for breakfast, and Daniel set up Noah's train set in the corner of the living room so he could play while still keeping an eye on the dogs. But Noah showed little interest in his trains. He remained steadfastly by Maya's side, talking to her, stroking her fur, and helping with the puppies whenever they needed feeding or cleaning. "Noah, honey," Lena said gently, "you should eat something." "The dogs will be fine for a few minutes." Noah shook his head stubbornly. "I'm not hungry. And Maya needs me." Lena exchanged a worried glance with Daniel. This behavior was so unlike their normally energetic, easily distracted 5-year-old. It was as if he'd suddenly developed a single-minded focus that bordered on obsession. Daniel tried a different approach. "Hey, buddy, how about I sit with Maya for a while and you can show me how to take care of her? That way, you can have a little break." Noah considered this, looking from his father to the dog and back again. Finally, he nodded reluctantly. "Okay, but you have to sit right here," he instructed, indicating the exact spot where he had been sitting. "And if she looks scared, you have to talk to her in a nice voice." "I promise," Daniel said solemnly, taking his assigned seat beside Maya. Noah hesitated for a moment longer before finally going to the kitchen table where Lena had set a plate of pancakes for him. He ate quickly, his eyes constantly darting back to check on Maya and his father. Lena sat beside him, using the opportunity to feel his forehead with the back of her hand. "Are you feeling okay, sweetie? You're acting a little different today." Noah shrugged, stuffing another piece of pancake into his mouth. "I'm fine. I just don't want Maya to be scared." "That's very kind of you," Lena said carefully, "but I'm a little concerned about how worried you are. Dogs are very tough, you know, and Dr. Ramirez said Maya is getting better."
Noah put down his fork, his expression suddenly serious in a way that made him look much older than his 5 years. "Mommy, can I tell you a secret?" Lena nodded, trying to hide her growing concern. "Of course, honey. You can tell me anything." Noah leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "I think Maya was looking for us. Not just any house, our house." "What makes you think that?" Lena asked, keeping her tone light despite the strange chill that ran down her spine. "Because," Noah hesitated, looking down at his plate. "Because she told me." Lena blinked, unsure how to respond. Kids Noah's age often had rich imaginations, and sometimes struggled to distinguish between reality and fantasy. It wasn't uncommon for children to believe they could talk to animals. "She told you?" "With words?" she asked gently. Noah shook his head. "Not words like we use, but I can feel what she's thinking. Like," he screwed up his face, searching for the right explanation, "like when you know I'm sad even when I don't say I'm sad." Lena relaxed slightly. "That's called empathy, honey. It means you're good at understanding how others feel. It's a wonderful quality to have." Noah nodded, seemingly satisfied with this explanation. "I have empathy with Maya, and she's scared of something, Mommy. Something bad." Before Lena could probe further, a sharp bark from Maya made them both jump. It was the first real bark they'd heard from her since she'd arrived, and it held a note of unmistakable alarm. They turned to see Maya struggling to her feet, her hackles raised as she stared intently at the front window. Daniel was already up, moving cautiously toward the window to look outside. "What is it, Daddy?" Noah asked, sliding off his chair and hurrying back to Maya's side. Daniel peered through the curtains, then frowned. "There's a car parked across the street, black sedan, tinted windows. I don't recognize it from the neighborhood." Lena joined him at the window, keeping her body partially hidden behind the curtain. The car in question was idling at the curb, its engine running. As they watched, the driver's side window lowered slightly, but the angle and the tint made it impossible to see who was inside. "Maybe they're just lost," Lena suggested, though she didn't quite believe it herself. Their street was a quiet cul-de-sac. There was no reason for a stranger to be parked there unless they were visiting someone. Maya continued to bark, the sound gaining strength despite her weakened condition. Noah had his arms around her neck, whispering something in her ear that the adults couldn't hear. After what seemed like an eternity but was probably less than a minute, the car window closed and the vehicle pulled away, driving slowly out of the cul-de-sac. "That was weird," Daniel said, letting the curtain fall back into place. "Did you see the license plate?" Lena shook her head. "No, it was too far away." "Should we call someone?" Daniel hesitated. "And say what?" "That a car was parked on our street? It's probably nothing." But he didn't sound convinced, and neither was Lena. Maya had stopped barking once the car disappeared, but she remained standing, her body tense and alert. Noah continued to stroke her neck, murmuring soothing words. "It's okay now," he told her. "They're gone. You can lie down again." To Lena's amazement, Maya seemed to listen to the child. She gave Noah's face a gentle lick, then carefully lowered herself back to her blanket, though her eyes remained focused on the window. "Noah," Daniel said, his voice carefully neutral, Has Maya ever acted like that before? Since she's been here, I mean? Noah shook his head. She was really scared this time. This time? Lena repeated. You mean, as opposed to other times? Noah looked up at his mother, his eyes wide and innocent. Last night she was scared too, but different. Last night she was tired scared. This was danger scared. Daniel and Lena exchanged another worried look over their son's head. There was something unsettling about the way Noah spoke about the dog, as if he truly could read her emotions with uncanny accuracy. I think, Daniel said slowly, I'm going to call Dr. Ramirez again. Tell her about this car. Maybe it's related to what she was saying earlier. Lena nodded, relieved that Daniel was taking the situation seriously. While he went to make the call, she knelt beside Noah and Maya. You really care about her, don't you? She asked her son. Noah nodded, his small fingers buried in Maya's fur. She's special, Mommy, and she needs us. Lena looked at the German shepherd, who returned her gaze with those intelligent amber eyes. There was indeed something special about this dog, something Lena couldn't quite put her finger on, but which she felt with increasing certainty. Yes, she agreed softly. I think she does. The rest of the morning passed uneventfully.
Noah continued his vigil beside Maya, only leaving her side when absolutely necessary, and always with clear instructions to his parents about how to care for her in his absence. By early afternoon, Maya seemed strong enough to drink water on her own, and even ate a small amount of the soft food Dr. Ramirez had left for her. The puppies were more active too, their tiny eyes now fully open, their little legs pushing against the blankets as they wiggled and squirmed. Noah was delighted by every sign of improvement. Look, Daddy, this one has a white spot on his nose, he exclaimed, carefully holding up the larger of the two puppies. And the little one has white on his paws, like socks. Daniel smiled, genuinely touched by his son's enthusiasm. They're going to be beautiful dogs when they grow up. Like their mommy, Noah agreed, gently returning the puppy to Maya's side. The mother dog immediately began to lick her baby, checking it over as if making sure Noah had returned it in perfect condition. Lena, who had been working on some reports for her job at the dining room table, closed her laptop and joined them. Dr. Ramirez will be back soon. Should we think about names for the puppies now, or wait until we know more about where they'll be staying? Noah's face immediately clouded over. They're staying with us, he insisted, forever and ever. Lena sighed, wishing she hadn't brought up the subject. Noah, remember what we talked about? We need to make sure no one is looking for Maya and her puppies before we can make any decisions. No one is looking for them, Noah said with that strange certainty that had been appearing more frequently. Except the bad man, and we can't let him find them. What bad man, Noah? Daniel asked, his voice carefully casual despite the alarm bells ringing in his head. Do you mean Mr. Grayson, the man who owned Maya before? Noah shook his head vehemently. Not him, the other one, the one who hurt her. Lena knelt to her son's eye level. Noah, sweetheart, how do you know someone hurt Maya? And how do you know it wasn't Mr. Grayson? Noah shrugged, his eyes avoiding his mother's. I just know. Before Lena could press further, the doorbell rang, making them all jump. Maya immediately tensed, a low growl rumbling in her throat. It's probably just Dr. Ramirez, Daniel said, but he approached the door cautiously, checking through the peephole before opening it. It was indeed Dr. Ramirez, but she wasn't alone. Beside her stood an older man with salt and pepper hair and the weathered face of someone who spent a lot of time outdoors. He was tall and lean, with the straight-backed posture of someone with military or law enforcement training. Mr. and Mrs. Carter, Dr. Ramirez said, as Daniel let them in. This is James Whitman. He's a retired police officer who used to work with K-9 units. I mentioned your situation to him, and he thinks he might be able to help. Mr. Whitman stepped forward, extending his hand to Daniel. Thank you for seeing me. Elena told me about the dog you found, and I think I might know something about her history. His eyes moved past Daniel to where Maya lay on her blanket, Noah still protectively at her side. The moment Mr. Whitman saw the German shepherd, his face paled visibly. My God, he whispered. It really is her. Maya's reaction was equally dramatic. At the sound of Mr. Whitman's voice, her head jerked up, her ears swiveling forward. She struggled to her feet, her tail beginning to wag despite her weakness. "You know her?" Lena asked, watching in amazement as Maya actually tried to move toward the man, though her injured leg made her stumble. Mr. Whitman nodded, his expression a mixture of shock and what looked almost like fear. "Yes, I know her. That's Maya, Eddie Grayson's dog. But this is impossible. She's supposed to be dead." "That's what the microchip registry said," Dr. Ramirez confirmed. "But as you can see, she's very much alive." Mr. Whitman knelt, allowing Maya to come to him. The dog sniffed his hands, then gave them a gentle lick, her tail wagging more strongly now. "She remembers you," Noah said, watching the interaction closely. Mr. Whitman looked at the boy with surprise. "Yes, she would. I helped train her when she was young." He turned back to the adults. "May I sit down? I think I need to tell you about Maya, and why finding her alive might be more complicated than you realize." Daniel gestured to the sofa. "Of course. I think we all want to hear this story." As they settled into the living room, Noah remained on the floor beside Maya, who had returned to her puppies after greeting Mr. Whitman. The retired officer looked at the small family unit with an expression of wonder. "I never thought I'd see her again," he said softly. "And with puppies, no less." He looked up at the Carters. "How did you find her?" Daniel briefly recounted the events of the previous night. The storm, the scratching at the door, Noah's insistence on helping the injured dog and her puppies. Mr. Whitman listened intently, his weathered face growing more serious with each detail. When Daniel mentioned the mysterious car that had been watching their house that morning, the older man's expression darkened. "I was afraid of that," he muttered. "They must have found out she's alive somehow." "Who?" Lena asked, her protective instincts flaring. "Who is looking for her?" Mr. Whitman ran a hand through his gray hair. "That's a complicated story. Eddie Grayson, Maya's owner, was a detective with the police department's special crimes unit, one of the best I ever worked with. Maya was his partner, a specially trained police dog." "A police dog?" Noah exclaimed, his eyes wide with excitement. "Like on TV?" Mr. Whitman smiled slightly. "Even better than on TV, Maya was exceptional, top of her class in tracking, evidence detection, and protection. Eddie and Maya were an unbeatable team until the Miller case." "What was the Miller case?" Daniel asked. Mr. Whitman's expression grew grim. "A little girl went missing. Sophie Miller, just 6 years old, disappeared from her bedroom in the middle of the night 2 years ago. No signs of forced entry, no evidence left behind. It was as if she had simply vanished." Lena instinctively reached for Daniel's hand, her mind immediately going to the unimaginable horror of a child being taken. "Did they find her?" Mr. Whitman shook his head. "Number. The case went cold after months of investigation. It nearly destroyed Eddie. He became obsessed, worked around the clock with Maya, following the smallest leads, the faintest trails. And then, about a year ago, something changed. Eddie became secretive, stopped sharing information with the department. He told me once that he and Maya had found something important, something he couldn't trust anyone else with." "What was it?" Daniel asked. "I don't know. He never told me. A week later, his house burned to the ground. They found a body inside, badly burned, but dental records confirmed it was Eddie. Maya was presumed to have died in the fire too." Noah, who had been listening intently, suddenly spoke up. "But she didn't. She escaped." Mr. Whitman looked at the boy with surprise. "That's right, she must have. But where has she been all this time? And those puppies can't be more than a few weeks old." Dr. Ramirez, who had been silent during Mr. Whitman's story, leaned forward. "The wounds she had when the Carters found her were fresh, no more than a day or two old. Someone attacked her recently." Mr. Whitman's expression darkened further. "And that car watching the house this morning?" He turned to Daniel and Lena, his voice deadly serious. "I don't want to frighten you, but I think you may have stumbled into something dangerous. If Maya is alive, and if she has whatever evidence Eddie found—" Noah suddenly stood up, his small face set in a determined expression that looked out of place on a child so young. "The bad men can't have her," he declared, "or the puppies. We won't let them." Mr. Whitman looked at Noah with newfound interest. "You're a brave young man, but these might be dangerous people we're dealing with. Lena pulled Noah closer to her side. Should we call the police? Report this? Mr. Whitman hesitated. That's the problem. Eddie didn't trust the department with whatever he found. He told me once that the Miller case went deeper than anyone realized, that there were people involved who should have been above suspicion. He sighed heavily. Without knowing what he discovered or who might be implicated, we can't be sure who to trust. A heavy silence fell over the room, broken only by the soft whimpering of one of the puppies as it dreamed. So what do we do? Daniel finally asked. Mr. Whitman looked at Maya, who had been watching him intently throughout the conversation, as if she understood every word. I think, he said slowly, we need to figure out what Eddie found, what Maya might still be protecting, and we need to do it before whoever hurt her realizes where she is. Noah knelt beside Maya once more, putting his small arms around her neck. Don't worry, he whispered to her. I won't let the bad men get you. I promise. The German shepherd licked his cheek once, her amber eyes never leaving his face. In that moment, the connection between boy and dog seemed so profound, so absolute, that everyone in the room felt it. A bond that transcended ordinary understanding, as if they had known each other not for a day, but for a lifetime. Night had fallen, casting long shadows across the Carter living room. The house was quiet except for the occasional soft whimper from the puppies as they nursed from their mother. Dr. Ramirez had gone home hours ago, leaving behind more supplies and strict instructions for Maya's care. Mr. Whitman had also left, promising to make some discreet inquiries about Detective Grayson's last case and to return the next day. Noah, despite his parents' gentle insistence that he sleep in his own bed tonight, had once again set up camp on the couch. His dinosaur pajamas glowed faintly in the dim light from the hallway nightlight as he lay on his side, one arm dangling off the edge of the couch so his fingers could just brush against Maya's fur. Daniel and Lena had finally retreated to their bedroom after checking all the doors and windows twice. The mysterious car hadn't returned, but Mr. Whitman's warnings had left them on edge. Do you think we should call the police anyway? Lena whispered as they lay in bed, both too wired to sleep despite their exhaustion. I mean, if someone's watching our house. Daniel sighed, staring up at the ceiling. And tell them what? That we found a dog that supposedly died in a fire a year ago, and now someone might be after her because she has evidence of something? They'd think we were crazy. Maybe not if Mr. Whitman backed us up. He used to be one of them. But even he doesn't know what evidence Grayson found or who might be involved. He did say Grayson suspected someone within the department. Lena turned onto her side, facing her husband in the darkness. I'm worried about Noah. Have you noticed how strangely he's been acting? It's like he's possessed. Daniel reached over to squeeze her hand. He's always had a soft spot for animals. Remember how he was with that injured bird last summer? This is different, Lena insisted. It's like he knows things about Maya that he couldn't possibly know. The way he talks about her, the bad men, it's unsettling. He's 5, Lena. Kids that age have active imaginations. He probably overheard us talking with Dr. Ramirez or Mr. Whitman and filled in the gaps with his imagination. Lena wasn't convinced, but decided to let it go for now. We should still take turns keeping watch tonight, just in case. Daniel agreed, setting an alarm on his phone to wake him in a few hours so Lena could get some sleep before taking over. Downstairs, Noah lay awake, his eyes fixed on Maya. The German shepherd wasn't sleeping either. Her eyes reflected the dim light as she stared toward the front window, ears occasionally twitching at sounds too faint for human ears to detect. I won't let them get you, Noah whispered, reaching down to stroke her head. I promise. Maya turned to look at him, her gaze intense and knowing. For a moment, it seemed as if she might speak, as if the air between boy and dog vibrated with unspoken communication. Then one of the puppies squeaked, breaking the moment as Maya turned her attention back to her babies. Noah's eyes began to droop, sleep finally claiming him, despite his determination to stay awake. His last conscious thought was of Maya's warm fur beneath his fingertips, and the strange certainty that something important was about to happen. He woke with a start some hours later, his heart pounding. The house was completely silent, the night at its deepest point. Noah blinked in confusion, unsure what had awakened him until he realized Maya was gone from her blanket. Panic shot through him as he bolted upright. Maya? He whispered urgently, eyes scanning the dim room. Relief flooded him when he spotted her standing rigidly by the window, her posture alert, a low growl vibrating in her throat. The puppies were still sleeping in their box, undisturbed. Noah slipped off the couch and padded over to the German shepherd on bare feet. "What is it, girl?" Maya's growl deepened as Noah reached the window. He stood on tiptoe to peer outside, but could see nothing unusual in the dark street beyond. Yet Maya remained tense, her hackles raised, her good ears swiveled forward. Suddenly, one of the puppies in the box let out a thin, distressed cry. It wasn't the usual hunger whimper, but something sharper, more alarmed. Noah rushed back to the box, Maya limping quickly behind him. The smaller puppy was lying on its side, its tiny body rigid, its legs sticking out at odd angles. It wasn't moving. "No, no, no," Noah gasped, his small hands hovering over the puppy, afraid to touch it. "Wake up, little baby, please." Maya pushed her nose against her puppy, licking it frantically, her actions growing more desperate when there was no response. The second puppy, awakened by the commotion, began to whimper in confusion. Noah felt tears welling in his eyes as he watched the mother dog's desperate attempts to rouse her baby. Without thinking about what he was doing, acting purely on instinct, he gently picked up the motionless puppy and cradled it against his chest. "Wake up," he whispered, his tears falling onto the tiny creature's fur. "Please wake up. You can't go yet." Noah's body began to tremble as he held the puppy close. The trembling intensified, becoming almost a vibration that seemed to pass from his small body into the puppy's. His vision blurred, not just with tears, but with a strange haziness that made the room seem to shimmer around him. "Come back," he murmured, his voice taking on a tone that seemed older, more certain. "Come back to your mommy. It's not time yet." Maya watched with an intensity that was almost human, her amber eyes fixed on her puppy in Noah's hands. Her entire body was still, as if she too was holding her breath, waiting. For a long, terrible moment, nothing happened. Then the puppy in Noah's hands twitched once, twice. A tiny gasp escaped its mouth, followed by a weak cry. Noah let out a sob of relief as the puppy began to move more vigorously, its little paws pushing against his palms, its mouth opening in a stronger cry for its mother. "He's okay," Noah said through his tears, carefully lowering the puppy back to Maya. "He's okay now." Maya immediately began licking her baby, checking it over from nose to tail, as if she couldn't believe the miracle she had just witnessed. The puppy, seemingly fully recovered from whatever had afflicted it, squirmed under her attention before finding his way to nurse alongside his brother. Noah sat back on his heels, suddenly exhausted. His small body sagged as if a great weight had been lifted from him, and his eyelids drooped heavily. A soft gasp from the doorway made him turn. His parents stood there, silhouetted against the hallway light. How long they had been watching, Noah didn't know. "Noah," Lena whispered, her voice shaking. "What just happened?" Before Noah could answer, his eyes rolled back and he collapsed onto the carpet beside Maya's blanket. "Noah!" Daniel rushed forward, gathering his son into his arms. "Lena, call an ambulance!" But even as Lena reached for her phone, Noah's eyes fluttered open. "I'm okay," he mumbled weakly. "Just tired, really, really tired." Daniel felt his son's forehead, which was cool to the touch. "What happened, buddy? We saw you with the puppy." Noah's gaze drifted to Maya, who was still tending to her recovered puppy with obvious relief. "He stopped breathing, but I helped him. I don't know how." His voice was slurred with exhaustion. "I just knew I could." Lena knelt beside them, her face pale in the dim light. "Daniel, I don't know what I saw." She lowered her voice, though Noah was already drifting back to sleep in his father's arms. It was like there was a light around his hands when he held that puppy, and the puppy wasn't breathing, I'm sure of it. And then it was. Daniel looked from his sleeping son to the puppies, now contentedly nursing, and back again. "That's not possible," he said, but his voice lacked conviction. Lena touched Noah's cheek gently. "Let's get him back to the couch. He seems okay now, just exhausted." As Daniel laid Noah back on the couch and Lena tucked a blanket around him, neither of them noticed Maya watching with those intelligent amber eyes, or the way she positioned herself protectively between her puppies and the door, as if she knew something they didn't. Morning brought sunshine streaming through the windows and, with it, revelations that would change everything. Daniel had risen early, unable to sleep after the strange events of the night. He sat at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, researching German shepherds on his laptop, and trying to find any information on Detective Edward Grayson. Most of the search results were just brief mentions in old newspaper articles about various cases, nothing that shed light on the current mystery. He was about to give up when a final search led him to an obituary from the local paper. It was brief, mentioning that Detective Edward Grayson, 45, had died in a house fire, leaving no immediate family. The only personal detail included was that he had been deeply dedicated to his work and his K-9 partner, Maya. Attached to the online obituary was a photo, a formal police department picture showing Grayson in uniform with Maya sitting attentively by his side. Daniel studied the photo, noting the detective's stern expression and the gleaming badge on his chest. Then his eyes fell to the dog, and he frowned. Something was off about the image. He zoomed in on Maya and realized what it was. The dog in the photo had two perfectly normal ears, while their Maya had one ear that was permanently folded over, as if it had been damaged. "Lena," he called, not taking his eyes off the screen. "Come look at this." Lena appeared in the doorway, looking tired after their disturbed night. "What is it?" Daniel turned the laptop so she could see. "This is supposedly Maya with Detective Grayson, but look at her ears." Lena peered at the screen. "They're both standing up. Our Maya has that folded ear." She looked up at Daniel. "What does it mean?" "I don't know. Maybe her ear was injured in the fire. Or maybe—" He hesitated, the alternative almost too strange to voice. "Maybe it's not the same dog," Lena finished for him. Daniel nodded slowly. "But then, why would she have Grayson's microchip information? And why did Mr. Whitman recognize her?" Before Lena could respond, a sound from the living room drew their attention. Noah was awake, sitting up on the couch and talking quietly to Maya, who had hobbled over to sit beside him. "How are you feeling, buddy?" Daniel asked, closing his laptop and moving to join his son. Noah yawned, rubbing his eyes. "Sleepy, but okay." He looked down at Maya, his expression brightening. "The puppy is better too." Sure enough, both puppies were active in their box, squirming and making small, mewling sounds as they sought their mother's attention. The smaller one that had been so still the night before showed no sign of any distress. Lena knelt beside the box, checking both puppies with gentle hands. "They seem fine," she confirmed, though her voice held a note of disbelief. "Noah, do you remember what happened last night?" Noah nodded solemnly. "The little puppy stopped breathing. I was scared." "And then what happened?" Daniel prompted gently. Noah's brow furrowed in concentration. "I picked him up. I was crying. And then I felt funny, like Buzzy all over. And I just knew I could help him." Lena and Daniel exchanged a look over their son's head. What he was describing was impossible, and yet they had both seen something last night that defied explanation. "Has anything like that ever happened before?" Lena asked carefully. Noah shook his head, then paused, his expression becoming distant. "Maybe, once, with Grandma's cat when it was really sick. But I don't remember very good." The doorbell rang before either parent could question him further. Daniel went to answer it, checking through the peephole first, a new habit in light of recent events. Mr. Whitman stood on their porch, looking grim. Behind him was a younger man, with close-cropped hair and the same military bearing. "Morning," Mr. Whitman said, as Daniel opened the door. "This is Mike Reeves, a trusted colleague. I've filled him in on the situation. May we come in?" Daniel hesitated only briefly before stepping aside. He was beginning to realize that this mystery was beyond anything he and Lena could handle alone. In the living room, introductions were made, with Noah regarding the newcomer suspiciously from his position next to Maya. The German shepherd seemed equally wary, her body tense though she made no aggressive moves. "I found something interesting," Mr. Whitman began without preamble. Eddie Grayson's personal effects were stored in the department's evidence locker after his death. Mostly routine items, wallet, keys, wristwatch. But there was also a collar with a tag. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a tarnished metal dog collar. The tag hanging from it was scratched and worn, but the name Maya was still clearly visible. "It was supposedly removed from his dog's body after the fire," Mr. Whitman continued. "But as you can see, there's no fire damage." Daniel took the collar, turning it over in his hands. "And our Maya wasn't wearing a collar when she showed up." Exactly, Mr. Whitman nodded. Which raises the question, if this collar wasn't on the dog that died in the fire, whose dog was it? Noah had been listening intently, his eyes fixed on the collar in Daniel's hands. Can I see that? He asked. Daniel hesitated, then passed the collar to his son. The moment Noah's fingers touched the metal, his eyes widened and he gasped softly. What is it, honey? Lena asked, alarmed by her son's reaction. Noah ran his small fingers over the tag, tracing the letters of Maya's name. There's something inside, he whispered. Something hidden. The adults exchanged puzzled glances. Inside what, Noah? Daniel asked. The collar? Noah nodded, his fingers working at the edge of the name tag. To everyone's astonishment, the tag split open, revealing a small compartment inside, and nestled within was a tiny memory card, no bigger than Noah's fingernail. How did you know that was there? Mr. Whitman asked, his voice a mixture of shock and suspicion. Noah shrugged, his eyes not meeting the older man's. I don't know, I just did. Mike Reeves, who had been silent until now, stepped forward. May I? He asked, holding out his hand for the memory card. Daniel looked to Mr. Whitman, who nodded reassuringly. Mike's a computer forensics expert. If there's anything on that card, he can retrieve it safely. Mike took the tiny card and pulled a small device from his pocket, a portable card reader. He connected it to his phone and carefully inserted the memory card. The room was silent as Mike worked, the only sounds the occasional whimper from the puppies and Maya's steady breathing. Noah had returned to the German shepherd's side, his small hand buried in her fur, as if drawing comfort from her presence. Finally, Mike looked up, his expression grim. It's encrypted. I can't access the files here. I'll need to take it back to my equipment. Mr. Whitman nodded. We expected as much. Eddie was always careful. He turned to the Carters. This could be what he was hiding, what got him killed, and if Maya ran with it. Then whoever's after her wants that memory card, Daniel finished. But why would Detective Grayson hide it in a collar that wasn't even on his dog? Lena asked, confused. Mr. Whitman's face darkened. That's what worries me. I think we might be dealing with a switch, a deliberate attempt to fake Maya's death. But why? Daniel asked. And if our Maya is the real one, whose dog died in that fire? The implications hung heavily in the air, a deliberate deception, a staged death, and at the center of it all, a memory card containing information someone was willing to kill for. Noah, who had been listening silently, suddenly spoke up. The car is back, he said quietly, his eyes fixed on the window. Everyone froze. Daniel moved cautiously to the window, peering through a gap in the curtains. Sure enough, the same black sedan from yesterday was parked across the street, its engine running. How did you know? Lena whispered to Noah. You can't even see the street from where you're sitting. Noah stroked Maya's head, his expression serious beyond his years. Maya told me. She can hear them. The adults might have dismissed this as a child's imagination, but Maya's behavior confirmed Noah's words. She was on high alert, her body tense, her gaze fixed on the front door, as if expecting it to burst open at any moment. We need to move, Mr. Whitman said urgently. If they've found her here, none of you are safe. Mike was already pocketing the memory card and disconnecting his device. My place is secure, he offered, and it's not far. Daniel nodded, his protective instincts flaring. I'll get some things for Noah and the dogs. As the adults sprang into action, gathering essentials and preparing to leave, Noah remained beside Maya, whispering in her ear. The German shepherd listened attentively, occasionally licking the boy's hand or face as if in agreement. What none of them knew, what none of them could possibly have guessed, was that the true nature of Maya's past and her connection to Noah was far stranger than anything they had imagined. The next few hours passed in a blur of hurried activity. Daniel packed a bag with clothes and essentials for himself, Lena, and Noah. Lena gathered Maya's supplies and food for the puppies, while Mr. Whitman kept watch at the window, tracking the black sedan that remained ominously parked across the street. Mike Reeves prepared to leave first, taking the memory card with him. I'll head out the back way and circle around, he explained in a low voice. My car is parked a block over. If they're watching the house, they shouldn't connect me to you. Noah sat on the floor with Maya and her puppies, speaking to them in hushed tones, as if explaining what was happening. The German shepherd seemed to understand the urgency of the situation, her body tense but controlled, her eyes constantly moving between Noah and the door. Here's the plan, Mr. Whitman said, once Mike had slipped out the back door. We'll leave in my car. I'll drive, with Mrs. Carter in the passenger seat and Mr. Carter in the back with Noah and the dogs. We'll make it look like a normal family outing. If that car follows us, I know some evasive driving techniques." Daniel nodded, though the surreal nature of the situation wasn't lost on him. 24 hours ago, they had been a normal family preparing for a quiet Sunday dinner. Now they were fleeing their home with a possibly stolen police dog, a mysterious memory card, and unknown pursuers watching their every move. Lena knelt beside Noah. "Honey, we need to go somewhere else for a little while, like a mini vacation. But we have to be very quiet and follow Mr. Whitman's instructions, okay?" Noah nodded solemnly. "I know, Mommy. Maya already told me we have to hide." Lena chose to ignore the implications of that statement for now. There would be time later to address her son's strange connection with the dog. "Can you help carry one of the puppies? We need to be very gentle with them." Noah carefully lifted the smaller puppy, the one that had so mysteriously recovered from death's doorstep the night before. "I'll take care of him," he promised, cradling the tiny creature against his chest. Mr. Whitman moved to the front door, peering through the peephole. "The car's still there. We'll go out through the garage. The tinted windows should make it harder for them to see who's inside my vehicle." They moved with coordinated efficiency, Daniel carrying the larger puppy and the supplies, Lena helping Maya navigate on her injured leg, and Mr. Whitman leading the way to the attached garage where his sturdy SUV waited. Within minutes, they were settled inside, Maya and the puppies secured in the back seat, with Noah between them and Daniel. "Everyone ready?" Mr. Whitman asked, starting the engine. Nods all around. The garage door opened and they backed out smoothly, turning onto the street and driving past the black sedan without a single glance in its direction. In the back seat, Noah ducked his head, as instructed, while Daniel kept his face partially turned away from the window. Through the rearview mirror, Mr. Whitman watched as the black sedan's engine started. "They're moving," he said quietly. "Hold on." Instead of speeding up or making any obvious evasive maneuvers, Mr. Whitman maintained a perfectly normal speed as he navigated through the suburban streets. The black sedan followed at a discreet distance. "Where exactly are we going?" Lena asked, her voice tense but controlled. "Mike has a cabin about 40 miles outside the city, remote, secure, and off the grid. But first, we need to lose our tail." He made a casual turn onto a busier boulevard, merging smoothly with the Sunday morning traffic. The black sedan followed, now 3 cars behind them. "There's a shopping center coming up," Mr. Whitman said, "with a multi-level parking garage. That's where we'll make our move." Daniel tightened his arm around Noah, who was sitting perfectly still, one hand on Maya's head and the other cradling the puppy. The boy's face was solemn, but remarkably calm for a 5-year-old in such a tense situation. "You doing okay, buddy?" Daniel whispered. Noah nodded. "Maya says we'll be safe soon." Daniel exchanged a quick glance with Lena, who had turned in her seat at Noah's words. There it was again, that strange certainty, as if Noah and Maya were sharing thoughts. Mr. Whitman guided the SUV into the entrance of the parking garage, taking a ticket from the automated machine. The black sedan followed, now only 2 cars behind. "Here we go," Mr. Whitman muttered, accelerating up the ramp to the 2nd level. He made a sharp turn, then another, winding his way up to the 4th level of the garage. The black sedan stayed with them, closing the distance. "Hold on," Mr. Whitman warned as they reached the top level. Instead of continuing to circle up, he suddenly cut across an empty row of parking spots and descended down a different ramp, cutting off a startled driver who honked in protest. "Sorry," he called out to no one in particular as he accelerated down the ramp, making hairpin turns that had everyone gripping their seats. Maya whined softly from the back seat, pressing herself closer to Noah as if to protect him from the jarring movements. "It's okay, girl," Noah whispered to her. "Mr. Whitman is a good driver." As they reached the 2nd level again, Mr. Whitman abruptly pulled into an empty parking space and cut the engine. "Duck down," he instructed. "All of you." They complied immediately, Noah curling protectively around the puppy in his arms while Daniel shielded both of them with his body. Maya somehow managed to make herself smaller, her injured leg tucked awkwardly beneath her. Minutes ticked by in tense silence. Then they heard it, the sound of a car engine racing past their position, tires squealing as it took the turn too fast. Mr. Whitman waited a full minute longer before straightening up. "They went all the way to the top, looking for us," he he explained. By the time they realize we're not there and come back down, we'll be long gone. He started the engine again and pulled out of the parking space, but instead of heading toward the exit, he drove to a different section of the garage and parked again. "What are we doing now?" Lena asked. "Switching vehicles?" Mr. Whitman replied, nodding toward a nondescript gray sedan parked 2 spaces away. "That's Mike's car. He left the key under the rear bumper, driver's side." Daniel raised an eyebrow, impressed despite the circumstances. "You've done this before." Mr. Whitman's weathered face cracked in a grim smile. "Let's just say Eddie and I handled some sensitive cases in our time. Wait here." He slipped out of the SUV and retrieved the key from under Mike's car, then returned quickly. Transfer time, quick and quiet. The next few minutes were a carefully choreographed dance of moving people, puppies and supplies from one vehicle to another without drawing attention. Maya seemed to understand the need for stealth, moving silently despite her injury, her eyes constantly scanning their surroundings for threats. Once they were all settled in Mike's sedan, Mr. Whitman drove calmly to the exit, paid for both parking tickets, and merged smoothly with the Sunday traffic. "Are they gone?" Noah asked, peering out the window. "For now," Mr. Whitman replied. "But we need to keep moving. It's about an hour's drive to the cabin." As they left the city behind, the landscape gradually changed from dense suburbs to scattered rural properties and eventually to thick woodland. Mr. Whitman turned onto progressively smaller roads until they were traveling on a narrow gravel track that wound through towering pine trees. "Almost there," he announced after they had been driving for nearly an hour. Mike should have arrived by now. The cabin, when it finally came into view, was more substantial than the term suggested. A modern 2-story structure built of logs and stone, with large windows and a wraparound porch. Mike's vehicle was already parked in the gravel driveway. "Wow," Noah breathed, pressing his face against the window. "It's like a castle in the forest." Mr. Whitman chuckled. Mike did well for himself after leaving the force. Cybersecurity pays better than police work. He parked beside Mike's car, and they all climbed out, stiff from the tense journey. Maya needed help getting down from the back seat, her injured leg clearly bothering her after being confined for so long. Mike appeared on the porch, waving them inside. "All clear. I've swept the place for bugs, and the security system is activated. If anyone comes within half a mile of here, we'll know about it." The interior of the cabin was as impressive as the exterior, open and airy, with a stone fireplace dominating one wall and comfortable furniture arranged throughout the large main room. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered views of the surrounding forest, while state-of-the-art locks and security screens provided protection. "Make yourselves at home," Mike said, gesturing to the space. "Kitchen's fully stocked, bedrooms upstairs. I've set up my equipment in the study." Noah immediately found a soft rug near the fireplace and helped Maya settle there with her puppies. The German Shepherd sighed with relief as she stretched out, allowing her babies to nurse. "Any progress with the memory card?" Mr. Whitman asked Mike. Mike's expression turned serious. "It's heavily encrypted, military grade. I'm running some decryption software now, but it could take hours, maybe longer." "Whatever's on that card," Daniel said, "it must be important if someone's willing to go to these lengths to get it back." Lena had been unusually quiet during the journey, but now she spoke up. "I've been thinking, if Detective Grayson faked Maya's death to protect her, why did she end up injured and on our doorstep? What happened in between?" It was a good question, one that had been bothering all of them. Mr. Whitman ran a hand through his gray hair, his weathered face creased in thought. "My guess is that Eddie had her hidden somewhere safe, maybe with someone he trusted. But something went wrong. Maybe that person was compromised, or maybe Eddie left instructions for Maya to seek help if too much time passed without his return." "But why our house?" Daniel pressed. "Out of all the houses in the city, why did she come to ours?" Noah, who had been listening intently while stroking Maya's fur, spoke up. "Because she was looking for me." All eyes turned to the 5-year-old, whose matter-of-fact tone made the hairs on the back of Daniel's neck stand up. "What do you mean, Noah?" Lena asked gently. "How would Maya know about you?" Noah shrugged, continuing to pet the dog. "I don't know. She just did. She was looking for me for a long time." An uncomfortable silence fell over the room. The adults exchanged glances, none willing to ask the questions that were forming in their minds. Mike was the first to break the tension. "I should check on the decryption progress. Make yourselves comfortable. There's food in the kitchen if anyone's hungry." As Mike disappeared into the study, Daniel moved to sit beside Noah. "Buddy, can you tell me more about what you mean when you say Maya was looking for you?" Noah looked up at his father, his eyes clear and honest. "She needed to find me because I can help her. Like I helped the puppy last night." Daniel nodded, trying to keep his expression neutral, despite the chill that ran through him. "And how did you help the puppy? Can you explain what happened?" Noah frowned in concentration. "I don't know how. I just felt something inside me, like warm, buzzy light, and I knew I could share it with the puppy to make him better." "Have you ever done that before, with other animals or people?" Noah hesitated, his eyes darting briefly to Maya before returning to his father. "Maybe. Sometimes I dream about it, and sometimes when I wake up, I remember doing it. But I don't know if it was real or just a dream." Lena had moved closer, sitting on Noah's other side. "What kind of dreams, sweetie?" "About helping people who are hurt, and about Maya, even before she came to our house. I dreamed about her a lot." The implications of what Noah was saying hung heavy in the air. Normal 5-year-olds didn't have prophetic dreams or healing abilities. Normal 5-year-olds couldn't communicate silently with dogs or sense danger before it appeared. Detective Edward Grayson and an unidentified child were killed last night when Grayson's home was destroyed by fire. Authorities suspect faulty wiring, though the investigation is ongoing. Grayson, a 15-year veteran of the force, was known for his work on missing persons cases. Sources close to the detective say he had recently become guardian to a young child, though no details are available at this time. The child's identity has not been released pending notification of next of kin. Daniel looked up from the phone, his face pale. "An unidentified child? There's nothing about this in the obituary I found." Mr. Whitman nodded grimly. "This article was scrubbed from most news sites shortly after it was published. The official story became that Grayson died alone in the fire. I only found it because I knew where to look." "But who was the child?" Lena asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "That's what I'm trying to find out," Mr. Whitman replied. "The timing coincides with the Sophie Miller disappearance. Eddie was obsessed with that case. If he found her, he would have wanted to protect her," Daniel finished, "even if it meant faking both their deaths." Noah had been listening to this exchange with an unusually intense focus for a child his age. Now he spoke again, his voice small but clear. "The little girl is safe now. Maya made sure of it." Mr. Whitman knelt in front of Noah, his expression gentle but serious. "Noah, this is very important. How do you know that? Did someone tell you?" Noah shook his head. "I just know, like I know other things. Like I knew the puppy could get better, and I knew Maya was coming to find me." Maya, who had been resting with her puppies, suddenly lifted her head and fixed her amber gaze on Noah. Something seemed to pass between them, a communication beyond words that made the adults in the room feel like intruders. "She's trying to tell us something," Noah said after a moment, his small face scrunched in concentration. "About the bad man." "What bad man, Noah?" Lena asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "The one who hurt her, the one who's still looking for the memory thing. He's a policeman, but he doesn't help people. He hurts them." The adults exchanged alarmed glances. If what Noah was saying was true, if one of the people pursuing Maya was indeed a corrupt police officer, it explained why Detective Grayson had been so secretive, why he hadn't trusted his own department with whatever evidence he had found. A sudden chime from the study interrupted the tense moment. Mike appeared in the doorway, his expression a mixture of triumph and concern. "I got through the first layer of encryption," he announced. "There's a video file. I think you all need to see this." They gathered around Mike's laptop in the study, Noah insisting on staying with Maya rather than viewing whatever might be on the memory card. Given the nature of the conversation thus far, Daniel and Lena were relieved to keep him away from what might be disturbing content. Mike hit play, and Detective Edward Grayson's face filled the screen. He looked exhausted with dark circles under his eyes and several days' growth of beard. Behind him was a nondescript room with boarded-up windows. "If you're watching this," Grayson began, his voice raspy with fatigue, "then something has happened to me. I'm recording this as insurance and as testament. What I'm about to say will put lives at risk, including my own, but the truth needs to be known." He took a deep breath, running a hand over his haggard face. 3 months ago, I found Sophie Miller, alive. She had been taken not by a stranger, as everyone assumed, but by someone she knew and trusted. Someone with the power and connections to make an investigation disappear. Grayson's face hardened with anger. Captain Robert Vance, head of missing persons, has been operating a trafficking ring using his position to target vulnerable children and cover up their disappearances. I've compiled evidence linking him to at least 7 cases over the past decade. Names, dates, financial records. It's all on this drive. The room fell silent as the gravity of Grayson's words sank in. A police captain, someone in a position of ultimate trust, involved in child trafficking. It was almost too horrible to comprehend. On the screen, Grayson continued, his eyes darting occasionally to something off camera. I've secured Sophie in a safe location. She's traumatized, but physically unharmed. I've also fabricated evidence of both our deaths to buy us time. My partner Maya is with us. At the mention of her name, a German shepherd's head briefly appeared in the frame, unmistakably their Maya, both ears intact. If you're seeing this, it means Maya has successfully delivered this evidence as instructed. I've trained her to seek help if anything happens to me. Grayson's face softened slightly. She'll know who to trust. The detective leaned closer to the camera, his expression deadly serious. Vance has connections throughout the department and beyond. Trust no one except James Whitman. If I don't make contact within 2 weeks, Whitman should take this evidence directly to FBI Special Agent Catherine Morales. No one else. The video ended abruptly, freezing on Grayson's haggard face. For several seconds, no one spoke. "My God," Lena finally whispered, her hand covering her mouth. "That poor little girl." Daniel looked at Mr. Whitman, whose weathered face had gone pale. "Did you know any of this?" The retired officer shook his head slowly. "I knew Eddie was onto something big with the Miller case, but this..." He ran a hand through his gray hair. Vance was his superior. Everyone respected him. He's been with the department for 20 years. "The perfect cover," Mike commented grimly. "Who would suspect the head of missing persons?" "But where is Sophie now?" Lena asked. "And Detective Grayson? If they faked their deaths?" Mr. Whitman's expression darkened. "The video is dated 13 months ago. Eddie never contacted me as he said he would. And Maya showed up at your door injured, alone, except for her puppies." The implications hung heavy in the air. If Grayson had been discovered, if Vance had found him. "The black sedan," Daniel said suddenly. "Could that be Vance? Or someone working for him," Mike agreed. "Either way, they must have tracked Maya to your house somehow." Daniel's thoughts immediately went to Noah and the strange connection he seemed to have with the German shepherd. "We should check on Noah." They filed out of the study to find Noah exactly where they'd left him, sitting beside Maya on the soft rug. The boy was speaking to her in a low voice, his small hand stroking her head. Both puppies were asleep, nestled against their mother's belly. Noah looked up as the adults entered, his young face unnaturally solemn. "The bad policeman found Mr. Grayson, didn't he?" A chill ran through Daniel at his son's words. None of them had mentioned what they'd seen in the video. "Why do you say that, Noah?" Lena asked carefully, kneeling beside her son. Noah's gaze dropped to Maya. "Because she's sad and scared. She tried to save him, but she couldn't. She got hurt, and then she had to run away with her babies." His voice dropped to a whisper. "And the little girl." Mr. Whitman stepped forward, his expression intent. "Noah, this is very important. Are you saying Sophie Miller was with Maya before she came to your house?" Noah nodded. "For a little while, but then they got separated when the bad men came. Maya got hurt trying to protect her." "And where is Sophie now?" Mr. Whitman pressed gently. Noah shrugged. "I don't know exactly, but she's safe. Maya made sure of it before she came to find me." Lena exchanged a bewildered glance with Daniel. How could their 5-year-old possibly know these things? Yet everything Noah had said so far seemed to align with what little they knew. "Noah," Daniel began, choosing his words carefully. "How do you know all this? Is it just feelings you get from Maya, or something else?" Noah seemed to consider the question seriously. "Both, I think. Maya tells me things, not with words, but with feelings and pictures in my head. But I also just know stuff sometimes, like when the puppy was sick, I knew I could help him." He looked up at his parents with earnest eyes. "I know it's weird, But it's true. Before any of the adults could respond, Mike's security system emitted a shrill beep. He rushed to a panel near the door, his expression tightening as he read the display. "Vehicle approaching," he announced. Still about a mile out, but moving fast. Mr. Whitman moved immediately to the window, scanning the forest road with a pair of binoculars Mike handed him. "Black sedan," he confirmed grimly. "Same one from before." Daniel felt a surge of protective fear. "How did they find us?" Mike was already moving, gathering equipment from around the room. "Unknown, but we need to move. Now, there's the emergency exit tunnel from the cellar. Leads to a hidden garage about a quarter-mile through the woods where I keep another vehicle." Lena had gathered Noah into her arms, the boy's eyes wide with fear. "Maya can't run," he protested. "Her leg is hurt." "I'll carry her," Daniel promised, already moving to the German shepherd's side. "Mr. Whitman, can you take the puppies?" The retired officer nodded, grabbing a small duffel bag and emptying it of its contents. "We can put them in here, keep them together." As they hurriedly prepared to flee, Noah suddenly went rigid in Lena's arms. "They're coming faster," he whispered, his voice distant. "There's more than one car now." Mike, who had returned to the security panel, confirmed this with a startled look. "He's right. Second vehicle just hit the perimeter sensors. How did he know?" There was no time to dwell on Noah's inexplicable awareness. Daniel carefully lifted Maya, who whimpered once but made no attempt to resist. Mr. Whitman had successfully secured both puppies in the makeshift carrier, the tiny creatures squeaking in protest at being moved. "Down here," Mike directed, leading them to a hidden door behind a bookcase that revealed a steep staircase descending into darkness. As they hurried down the stairs, the sound of vehicles approaching grew louder above them. The cellar was cool and dimly lit, with concrete walls and a dirt floor. At the far end was another door, heavy and metal. "This leads to a tunnel," Mike explained as he punched a code into a keypad. "Built it when I first bought this place. Pays to be paranoid in my line of work." The door swung open to reveal a narrow passage reinforced with wooden beams. Battery-powered lamps flicked on automatically as they entered, casting long shadows ahead of them. "Stay close," Mike instructed, taking the lead while Mr. Whitman brought up the rear. Their progress was slow. The tunnel was not designed for speed, but for stealth. Daniel struggled to carry Maya without jostling her injured leg, while Lena held Noah's hand tightly, the boy unusually quiet as they moved through the underground passage. Above them, muffled by earth and distance, came the sound of doors slamming, raised voices. The intruders had reached the cabin. "Almost there," Mike whispered after what seemed like an eternity, but was probably only a few minutes. They emerged into another small cellar, this one attached to what appeared to be a simple tool shed from the outside. Through gaps in the wooden planks, they could see they were in a different part of the forest, with no sign of the cabin or the approaching vehicles. Mike moved to a tarp-covered shape that occupied most of the shed. Pulling back the cover revealed a rugged all-terrain vehicle, larger than a standard car but smaller than a full-sized SUV. "Everyone in," he directed. "It's going to be tight, but we'll make it work." Daniel carefully placed Maya in the back seat, then helped Mr. Whitman situate the puppies beside her. Noah insisted on sitting next to the German shepherd, his small face set in determination. "I'll keep her safe," he promised, one arm protectively around Maya's neck. As they settled into the vehicle, a distant sound made them all freeze, gunshots coming from the direction of the cabin. "Go, go, go!" Mr. Whitman urged, and Mike didn't need to be told twice. He started the engine and pressed a button that opened the shed doors automatically. The vehicle lurched forward onto a narrow dirt track, completely different from the road they had arrived on. Mike navigated with practiced ease, the powerful engine carrying them deeper into the forest and away from danger. "Where are we going?" Lena asked, clutching the seat as they bounced over rough terrain. "I have another safe house," Mike replied without taking his eyes off the path. "About 2 hours from here if we stick to the back roads, more remote than the cabin and not connected to me in any way." Daniel turned to look out the rear window, half expecting to see pursuers, but there was only the empty forest track behind them. "Do you think they'll follow us?" Mr. Whitman shook his head. "Not right away. The tunnel was well hidden, and they'll waste time searching the cabin first." His expression grew grim. "But they won't give up. If that was Vance or his people back there, they're desperate now. They know we have the evidence. And they're willing to kill for it," Mike added darkly. "Those were gunshots we heard, not a car backfiring. In the back seat, Noah had gone very still, his eyes closed and one hand resting on Maya's head. The German Shepherd watched him with that same intense focus they had all noticed before, as if the two were communicating on some level the adults couldn't comprehend. "Noah," Lena called softly. "Are you all right?" The boy's eyes opened slowly. "Something's happening," he said, his voice sounding older and more certain than it should. "Maya says we need to go somewhere else, not the safe house." Mike glanced in the rearview mirror, his expression skeptical. "No offense, kid, but I think we should stick to the plan." "No," Noah insisted, sitting up straighter. "Maya knows where the little girl is. That's where we need to go." The adults exchanged uneasy glances. The idea of taking direction from a 5-year-old boy who claimed to be communicating with a dog seemed absurd. And yet, Noah had known about the second vehicle before the sensors detected it. He had known details about Grayson and Sophie that he couldn't possibly have heard from anyone. Mr. Whitman was the first to speak. "Where does Maya want us to go, Noah?" Noah closed his eyes again, his brow furrowing in concentration. "She says, a lake, a small cabin by a lake, with a blue door. That's where Mr. Grayson hid the little girl before the bad men found him." Mr. Whitman went very still. "Blue Haven," he said softly. "It's a fishing cabin Eddie and I used to use, years ago, on Lake Winnifred, about 3 hours north of here." He looked at Mike. "I'd forgotten all about it. We haven't been there in at least a decade." "Is it registered to either of you?" Mike asked. Mr. Whitman shook his head. "It belonged to Eddie's uncle. When he died, Eddie inherited it, but I doubt many people knew about it. It wasn't the kind of thing he talked about at work." "The perfect hiding place," Daniel mused. "But how would Maya know to direct us there now?" They all looked at the German Shepherd, who was watching them with those intelligent amber eyes, her head slightly tilted as if waiting for them to understand. "Maybe Grayson gave her some kind of signal or command," Mike suggested. "These police dogs are trained to follow complex instructions." But that explanation didn't account for how Maya was supposedly communicating these instructions to Noah. Daniel looked at his son, noticing again how the boy seemed different somehow, more focused, more present. His usual 5-year-old restlessness completely absent. "Let's do it," he said finally. "If there's any chance Sophie Miller is at that cabin, we have to check." Mike hesitated only briefly before nodding. "You'll have to direct me," he told Mr. Whitman. "I don't know where this place is." As Mike adjusted their course based on Mr. Whitman's instructions, the mood in the vehicle shifted. What had been a panicked flight now felt like a mission with purpose. If they could find Sophie Miller alive, if they could connect her and the evidence on the memory card to Captain Vance, they might not need to run anymore. The journey was long and tense. They stuck to back roads and forest tracks, avoiding main highways where they might be spotted. Maya slept for much of the trip, her body finally succumbing to the exhaustion of her injuries and the stress of the past few days. The puppies, too, slept peacefully in their makeshift carrier, occasionally waking to whimper for food, which Lena carefully prepared from the supplies they had grabbed during their hasty departure. Noah remained unusually quiet, alternating between watching the passing scenery and keeping a protective hand on Maya. Occasionally, he would whisper something to the sleeping dog, too low for the adults to hear. As the hours passed, the terrain changed, becoming more rugged and elevated. Pine forest gave way to mixed woodland, and eventually the glint of water appeared through the trees. "Lake Winnifred," Mr. Whitman announced. "The cabin should be on the north shore, about half a mile ahead." They approached cautiously, Mike cutting the engine some distance from their destination and allowing the vehicle to coast to a stop among the trees. If anyone was watching the cabin, they didn't want to announce their arrival. "I'll go first," Mr. Whitman said, pulling a small handgun from an ankle holster none of them had noticed before, just to be safe. Daniel and Lena exchanged alarmed glances but didn't object. After what they had learned about Captain Vance, after the gunshots at the cabin, they knew the danger was real. "Stay here," Daniel instructed Noah firmly. "Look after Maya and the puppies." Noah nodded solemnly, but his eyes had the distant look again, as if he was seeing or hearing something beyond the confines of the vehicle. Mr. Whitman slipped into the trees, moving with the practiced stealth of his law enforcement background. Daniel watched him disappear, anxiety churning in his stomach. What if this was a trap? What if they were wrong about everything? 10 minutes later, just as Daniel was about to suggest they should go look for him, Mr. Whitman reappeared, his expression unreadable. "The cabin's there," he reported. "Blue door, just like Noah said. No signs of recent activity outside, but there's a padlock on the door that looks newer than the rest of the place." "And no sign of anyone watching it?" Mike asked. Mr. Whitman shook his head. "Nothing obvious, but if someone's inside, they're being very quiet." "What now?" Lena asked, her voice tight with tension. Before anyone could respond, Noah spoke up from the back seat. "She's in there," he said with quiet certainty. "The little girl. She's scared, but she's okay." He turned to look at Maya, who had awakened and was watching him intently. "Maya says we should hurry. The bad men will find this place soon." Daniel looked to Mr. Whitman, who hesitated only briefly before nodding. "We need to check, if Sophie Miller is really in there." The decision made, they approached the cabin on foot, Mike staying with the vehicle while Daniel, Lena, Noah, and Mr. Whitman made their way through the trees. Despite her injury, Maya insisted on coming, limping along beside Noah, her ears alert and swiveling to catch any unusual sounds. The cabin was small and weathered, its wooden walls gray with age. True to Noah's description, the door was painted a faded blue, secured with a sturdy padlock. The windows were covered from inside, preventing any view of the interior. Mr. Whitman examined the padlock. "This isn't going to be easy to break without making noise." Noah stepped forward, Maya at his side. "We don't need to break it," he said, his voice still carrying that strange certainty. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver key. Maya had this. Mr. Grayson put it on her collar before he died. The adults stared in disbelief. None of them had seen Noah retrieve anything from Maya's collar, nor had they noticed a key. "When did you find this?" Lena asked. Noah shrugged. "I just knew it was there. Maya told me." With trembling fingers, Mr. Whitman took the key and tried it in the padlock. It turned smoothly, the lock opening with a soft click. He removed it carefully and pushed the door open, gun at the ready. The interior of the cabin was dim, the covered windows blocking most of the afternoon light. It took a moment for their eyes to adjust, revealing a simple space with basic furniture. A small kitchenette, a table with chairs, a worn sofa, and a single doorway leading to what was presumably a bedroom. The cabin appeared empty, but Maya pushed past them, limping directly to the closed bedroom door. She whined softly, pawing at the wood. "Hello?" Mr. Whitman called. "Anyone here? We're friends of Detective Grayson." Silence greeted his words. Then, so faint they almost missed it, came a small sound from behind the bedroom door. A shuffling movement, then nothing. Noah moved forward, kneeling beside Maya. "It's okay," he called, his voice gentle and reassuring. "Maya brought us here to help you. You don't have to be scared anymore." Another moment of silence, then the sound of a latch being turned. The bedroom door opened just a crack, revealing a sliver of darkness beyond. A small, pale face appeared in the gap. A girl, no older than 6 or 7, with tangled blonde hair and frightened eyes. "Maya," the child whispered, her gaze fixing on the German shepherd. The dog's tail wagged in recognition, and she whined again, pushing her nose toward the gap in the door. The girl's eyes filled with tears, and she flung the door open, dropping to her knees to throw her arms around Maya's neck. "You came back! I knew you would," she sobbed, burying her face in the dog's fur. Mr. Whitman lowered his gun, his weathered face softening with emotion. "Sophie?" he asked gently. "Sophie Miller?" The girl looked up, her arms still around Maya. She nodded hesitantly, her eyes darting between the strangers in the cabin. "We're friends," Lena said, kneeling to the child's level. "We're here to help you, to take you home." Sophie's face crumpled. "Eddie said he would come back for me. He said to stay hidden, and Maya would protect me. But then Maya had to leave because of the puppies." Her voice dropped to a whisper. "Eddie's not coming back, is he?" The truth of what had happened to Detective Grayson was written clearly on Mr. Whitman's face, though he tried to soften his expression for the child's sake. "No, sweetheart. I'm afraid he can't come back. But he sent us to find you, to make sure you're safe." Sophie's eyes filled with fresh tears, but she nodded in understanding. Children who have endured trauma often develop a maturity beyond their years, and it was clear that Sophie Miller had survived horrors no child should ever face. Noah, who had been watching this exchange silently, stepped forward and offered his hand to Sophie. "My name's Noah. Maya came to my house when she needed help. I think she knew we would help find you, too." Sophie studied him for a long moment before taking his offered hand. "You're like me," she said simply. Noah nodded as if this made perfect sense. "I know, that's why Maya found me." The two children looked at each other with a shared understanding that excluded the adults in the room. Then Sophie's stomach growled loudly, breaking the solemn moment. "When did you last eat?" Lena asked, her maternal instincts taking over. Sophie shrugged. "Yesterday, I think. Eddie left lots of food, but—" She glanced toward the kitchenette. "I was scared to make noise, in case they came." "It's okay now," Daniel assured her. "We'll get you something to eat, and then we need to leave. It's not safe to stay here." As Lena rummaged through the cabin supplies to prepare a quick meal for Sophie, Mr. Whitman pulled Daniel aside. "We need to contact the FBI," he said in a low voice. "Agent Morales, like Eddie said in the video, with Sophie alive and the evidence on that memory card, we can bring Vance down for good." Daniel nodded. "But we have to be careful. If Vance has as many connections as Grayson feared—" "I know people I trust," Mr. Whitman assured him. "People outside the local department. We'll make it happen." They both turned to watch as Noah and Sophie sat together on the cabin floor. Maya stretched out beside them, the German shepherd's body language more relaxed than they had seen it since she arrived on their doorstep. The dog's mission was finally complete. She had protected Sophie as long as she could, then sought help when the puppy's birth made it impossible for her to continue alone. Somehow, against all odds, she had found Noah, a child with abilities no one could explain, but which had proven crucial to their survival. As if sensing their gaze, Maya lifted her head and looked directly at Daniel and Mr. Whitman. In those amber eyes was an intelligence and awareness that went beyond what any dog should possess. For just a moment, Daniel could almost believe what Noah had been saying all along, that Maya could communicate, could understand far more than simply commands and routines. Then she laid her head back down between the two children, a soft sigh escaping her as she finally allowed herself to truly rest. Her puppies were safe. Sophie was safe. The evidence that would bring justice for Detective Grayson was secure. Her mission was complete.